Welcome to New Light Living Podcast. I'm Ulrika Sullivan. I'm an intuitive spiritual life coach. And today we're going to talk about how to listen to your intuition. And at the end, I'm going to give you 3 actionable, realistic steps on how you can start tapping into and listen to your own intuition. One of the things that I help others with is to expand their perspective on what's possible for them. And that includes to increase our trust in what we already know, what our body already knows, what our intuition, what is telling us, and what our body is telling us. Because there is so much wisdom within you already. And we often consult the external world first before we go in to ourselves and kind of what is the right direction here, if ever. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to increase that trust in your inner knowing, in your intuition, because these days, the times we're living in are going to require us to go within and trust what we already know and what our soul is telling us is right for us. So are you with me? Let's dive in. First, I want to ask you, how do you listen to your intuition today? And you may say, I don't really listen to my intuition. I know that I have an inner compass, something that sometimes tells me what is right and wrong, or what is not right for me. Sometimes I listen to it and sometimes I don't. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we increase this trust in listening to our own wisdom? Because all too often we ignore what is right for us, where our life is taking us, if we don't want to go down that route. But in the end, it might be the absolutely right direction, but we don't really see the big picture. And that is what I'm meaning with to expand that perspective, to see that big picture of your life in a different light. And that comes with trusting the direction that is for you and that your soul already knows. So I want to read a little passage here from my book, and it goes like this. When we live a life driven by the mind, we don't have to connect and listen to those sparks of inspiration or our inner voice to take a step out of the ordinary. But when our inner voice, facilitated by our intuition, gets a word, the mind game is over. And we start to listen from within. And that is from my book, Wisdom Beyond What You Know. And that is simply speaking to that these intuitive hits that we get, that we so often ignore, and that's a millisecond impulse sometimes that comes to us, that is a sign that we notice, or a feeling, or a memory that comes into our consciousness. And in those situations, so often we ignore it because we're wrapped up in something external that we've planned for, or we have expectations around, and we ignore that intuitive hit. So how are you listening to your intuition today? Take a moment here to find the answer to that. And it's okay if you come to the answer of, I don't really listen to my intuition. And that's why you're here. That's why you're listening to this episode, because there is something within you that is awakening, perhaps, that you want to have this expanded perception and ability connected back up again. Because when we are younger, as a child, for example, we are very intuitive. We're one with our environment, one with our intuition, one with our body. And it is really to come back to that state. And we can do that with lots of intentional work, in the sense that we have to be willing to connect back with those impulses, those intuitive hits. And when we do that, we can grow that state so that every day we can connect with intuitive hits. Because in our daily life, there are signs and synchronicities and intuitive hits presented to you that you can choose to listen to, take in, or not. So why does this matter? Why does it matter to start listening and expanding this ability that you already have around listening to your intuition? Why is it so important? I mentioned earlier that the times we're living in are going to require us to go within and go to our inner knowing, so that we can be led from within instead of from the outside. And it simply put, it's about self-empowerment. Because for so long, we have looked for the answers outside of us. And now we're encouraged to come within and learn more about our inner world and the richness that exists within us. Every single one of us have an inner wisdom to tap into. And why this really matters is that intuitively, we know what is right for us. But the self-doubt that is created by looking on the outside of us to say, okay, I'm not as good as this person over here for some reason, and that makes me doubt myself because I don't have what that other person has at this moment. And that makes us sometimes, I'm simplifying here, of course, but you know the dynamic of wanting something in the outside world that looks great, that's what I want, but we are, it may not be a good fit for you deep down. So it is about opening up to listen to what is right for us, and without that external involvement, if you will. And what it leads to is less self-doubt, less questioning of our decisions. And also, we simply click with what we already know. When we listen to our intuition and honor that intuitive hit in our daily life, it might be that you are realizing that, you know, now is really a time when I need to go outside and get some fresh air after 5 hours in front of the computer, for example. And so many times we ignore a signal like that. No, I'm going to continue working for another hour because that's my workday. And that's an expectation that we've put on ourselves, or somebody else put that expectation on ourselves. When our intuition, our soul is telling us, no, you need to take a break. You need to go outside, get some sun, connect with a tree outside, just to come back in balance within our energy. And those are simple intuitive hits that can happen every time. It doesn't have to be like something earth shattering, like a major life decision we're talking about here. No, it's about that daily listening within and clicking with what we already know is right for us. And what it leads to is this greater sense of inner peace that we know that whatever we need, we can just go inside of ourselves to listen and act on that. So that provides a sensation of, I'm good. All is well. instead of that constant seeking of answers and seeking of what's right for us on the outside of us. So what is possible here? Let's say that you want now, after what you've heard here, I want to learn how to increase and trust my intuition and really connect with it. What is possible for me? Now, what it does is that it helps also to quiet down our own ego. So if you have a very loud inner critic, for example, that you deal with on a daily basis, for example, an inner voice that tells, oh, I can't do this because I'm not smart enough, or I can't do this because I don't have the degree, or I can't do this because I don't have the experience. And those are examples, of course, that of inner conversations that many of us have why we can't do things, for example. When we connect with our own intuition and strengthen that trust in what we hear and what we sense, we can quiet that ego, and we can quiet our inner critic to instead be replaced by a feeling of expansion, that bigger perspective that, oh yeah, I feel now this is right for me, because I feel good about even thinking about it or feeling it, the possibility. And so the sense of expansion and possibility becomes overwhelmingly present as we tune into our inner voice and truly listen to what is right for us on the inside. So I promised you're going to get some tips here in this episode on how to start tuning into and listen to your intuition. The first step is to slow down. And what that means for you, and it means something different to everyone. But where in your life are you not slowing down? Is it with your thoughts? Is it that you always have to be occupied with something? Is it that you are overbooked in your schedule? Is it that you always are thinking in the future? All of those things are examples of where we get an opportunity to slow down and be in the present moment. So how can you slow down within your life? So it may take just a little brainstorm, like, where can I create some more space for me to slow down in my life? That's step number one. Step number two, and tip number two, is really, it takes willingness to slow down, but also to wanting to be willing to learn something about yourself. And I want to give you the tip of tuning into what inspires you and what is like that creative energy that is going to lead you down the path of being more and more willing to listen what comes from within, because our intuition is of the same energy as inspiration and creativity. So tuning into what inspires you or what makes you feel energized is a good start, and that's where the willingness comes in, and you can expand that energy within yourself. The third tip is to actually act on the impulse, act on the intuitive hit once it comes to you. And it requires, not a decision really. It requires you to be open to those intuitive hits. Because when it comes, you can't miss it. if you're open to it. And what it is in the third step is really to act on that intuitive hit, act on that impulse, and not negotiate with yourself that it may not work, or I can't do it, or whatever the reason is. No, just act on it and see what happens. Because your soul already knows what's right for you, and it will not lead you down the wrong path. Isn't that amazing? That's linked into your inner peace, knowing that your soul already knows what's right for you. Thank you so much for listening to New Light Living Podcast. I'm Ulrika Sullivan. I'm an intuitive spiritual life coach, and I will be back soon with another episode. Bye.